I was 14 years old in 2016. This took place in October, right around the corner from Halloween. Going over the memories in my head, it must have been a school night, because I was staying up, playing video games on my Xbox One. It was the dead of midnight. I sat in the darkness of my own room, only illuminated by the bright screen of my video game. My bed was right up against the wall. The walls weren't thick or thin, just normal, and just a pinky finger's reach away from the foot of my bed was one of my bedroom windows. Beyond that window was my dresser, and on top of the dresser sat my TV. While I was deeply focused on my single-player game, I suddenly heard a knock at the window near the foot of my bed. As a terrified 14-year-old would, I immediately turned off my TV and pulled the sheets over my head. I was hoping whoever was outside my window would just go away, but that did the opposite. The person outside my window knew someone was in there and awake at that time of night. My curtains were bunched up, not properly closed. They allowed my TV's glow to be seen from the outside. He continued knocking, subtly, and then I heard it, a quiet laugh. It sounded like a clown's laugh, but much more sinister given the circumstances. My mom and her boyfriend, now ex-boyfriend, were both heavy sleepers. I often took advantage of that, staying up late so they wouldn't hear anything. I wanted to yell out for help, to call for my mom, but I was too scared, too frozen in my bed, to even make a peep. After a while, the person probably got bored, because the knocking stopped, the laughter faded away. Cautiously checked the window, and there wasn't anyone there, but I was terrified and awake for the rest of the night, way too paranoid, closed my eyes and let my guard down. Halloween has always been my favorite night of the year. I love the thrill, the costumes, the feeling of stepping out in the dark with friends to see who's giving out the best candy. But last year, Halloween didn't feel like a thrill. It felt wrong. My friends and I decided to try a new neighborhood, about 10 minutes away from ours. It was a bit out of the way, but we'd heard they gave out full-size candy bars, so of course, we were all in. When we got there, the houses were bigger. It was way quieter than our neighborhood. Barely any kids, barely any noise. But there was this house at the end of the road, covered in decorations, porch lights bright, and right on the steps, a huge bowl of candy. We thought, jackpot. As we walked up, I noticed that even with all the lights on, it was weirdly quiet inside. No TV, no voices. We figured they'd just left the bowl out. So Max starts digging through the candy, searching for the good stuff. I just grab the first thing I touch and drop it in my bag. Then we heard it, a voice from inside, muffled but clear. Only take one, each. We froze, staring at each other. We didn't know if it was a recording or if someone was watching us from the window. But Max didn't need to be told twice. We backed off the porch, and as we walked away, I felt this chill. I looked back and thought I saw the curtain move, just a little. The rest of the night was fine, normal trick-or-treating. When I got home, I dumped out my candy, looking for what I'd grabbed from that house. It was a small candy apple wrapped in red cellophane with a little black ribbon. Not my favorite, but I figured I'd try it later. That night, I woke up around 3 a.m. to a loud banging on our front door. I froze, sitting up in bed. A couple of seconds later, the banging stopped. Then, slowly, the sound moved around to the side of the house, closer to my bedroom window. My heart was pounding, but I told myself it was probably just some pranksters, still out late. Then my phone lit up on my nightstand. One new message. I picked it up, hands shaking a little. It was from an unknown number. The message just said, "Did you like the apple?" I dropped my phone immediately, heart racing. No one could know I'd grabbed an apple, or that I hadn't eaten it. But the messages didn't stop there. More started coming through. You forgot to say thank you. Don't be rude. I'm still outside. Then, nothing. Silence. I barely slept, lying there, listening, waiting for anything. But nothing else happened. The next morning, I told my mom, and we went outside to check. There on the front porch was the candy apple from last night. But the cellophane was torn open, and the apple split in half right down the middle. Inside, someone had hollowed it out and tucked a single note into the center, folded tight. In messy handwriting, it just said, "Maybe next year, you'll remember your manners." When I was really little, my parents would let me stay up late on weekends and watch TV until I fell asleep. I loved these times and stayed up later than anyone else in the house, just because I could. Well, one night, I was almost asleep on the couch, and when I heard a noise coming from the front porch, it was the sound of our old-fashioned porch swing, moving back and forth. Chill went down my spine. Quietly, I crept toward the bay windows in the living room and peeked out of the porch. Sitting on our front porch swing was an older woman. She was probably in her 50s, wearing nothing but a nightgown, covered in blood, holding a huge kitchen knife. I could feel my heart pounding. I flipped out and ran to my parents' room, screaming, but I was too terrified to even speak. My parents could see how upset I was. When I finally managed to tell them what I saw, my dad just got angry. He told me it was just a dream and ordered me to go back to bed. But I refused. I cried, I begged until he'd had enough. He grabbed my arm, dragging me toward the front door to prove that nothing was there. I kicked, I screamed, I begged him to stop, but he kept pulling me along. Finally, we reached the door. He unlocked it, yanked it open, and said, "See? There's nothing that..." But he stopped, mid-sentence. To this day, I have never seen the look of fear on his face like I did at that moment. Because there she was, the woman on the porch, staring back at us, standing slowly, gripping the knife in her hand. My dad slammed the door shut, told my mom to call the police, and ran to grab his gun. He returned with his shotgun, cracked open the door just enough to poke the barrel outside. He called out to her and asked what she was doing. She just stared back and said, "Somebody killed my husband, but it wasn't me." My dad told her the police were on their way, and she freaked out. She grabbed the knife and walked away, disappearing into the night. The police arrived 15 minutes later. They found her trying to break into one of our neighbors' houses. Since that night, I've never slept in the living room again.